Welcome to another Pilates Hour, and today's a very special day. And there's been a series that I've wanted to start for a while, which I refer to as Polestar Around the World. And I wanted our first guest to be Alice Becker, who is our licensee from Brazil. She's a dear friend and like a sister and a heartthrob of mine for many years. We've had the privilege of enjoying Alice's creativity and her background in dance and her passion for life and nature. So it's an honor to have you on the Pilates Hour, Alice. So thank you for coming on with short notice.
This is so cool to be here, Brent. Thank you, and the honor is mine. It's really great to be talking to Polestar family all over the world.
So Alice is in Brazil, but she is on this very special, beautiful part of Brazil called Capão, and they have a small home there that they often retreat to, especially with things as crazy as they are around the world, and Brazil's no exception to that. But you're in Capão, and I just want to, Alice asked me to pre-frame a little bit that the internet sometimes a little shaky if the weather changes or if something happens. We might have to go to voice only, so we ask you to be patient with us in front, but we're just glad that we can, the thought that we can be talking to you with video in Capão right now is a miracle in and of itself, because I remember the first time that I went there, and it was very remote, like there was no phone signal. It was wonderful.
Still no phones, still only internet, but internet that, today is, we are crossing our fingers. I made this special arrangement to be able to talk to you, but there was no light in my house. Remember, all candles, Brent?
Yeah, I remember that. It was great. It was such a we had worked so hard for like 8-9 days, and we did the same thing with Praia de Forte too, but we just worked really hard, and then we escaped somewhere where there just was nature and could rest and no contact, and it was always a very special memory of mine. I'd like to start off with this webinar just going a little bit back into your history, Alice, and maybe telling the audience a little bit about sort of growing up as a kid, and we got some special pictures as well, so maybe Melissa can pop up that first slide and tell us a little bit about growing up and your family, your siblings. I've met almost all of them, and a very special family. So
I live in the northeast of Brazil. It's between the tropics. It's a tropical place called Bahia, and it's very African culture because the majority of the population has come originally from Africa. So I'm an exception, right? I'm like, I look a gringa to them because of light eyes and light skin. I am stopped in the street the whole time, people talking to me in English, thinking I'm a tourist. But where I come from, it's the south of Brazil where this picture is. We are very European descent. So this is what my family is, mostly German, Italian, Spanish, and Brazilian Indian. This is the mixture I have. My mom is very German descent, and my dad, Spanish, Italian, and Brazilian Indian. So the south of Brazil, it's mixed, but it's more European, Japanese, and the north and northeast is a lot of black and a mixture of black and Indians and all that. So I live now in a place that's very different from my culture as a child. Brazil is huge. It's like every state is it's a country on its own. And the south of Brazil, it's like another country compared to where I am now. And here in Bahia, the culture is very vivid. Sorry, Brent?
I was always so impressed with how comfortable you are and were 20 years ago even in Bahia, and just how beautiful the people are, and just you introduced me to a culture that was just amazing, from the food to the dance and the music and Carlinhos Brown and all these great things that I've now had the experience of, that I felt was very similar to the times that if I've been to Africa, that I had that similar, the food, the music, the family, just the culture was amazing. the
Yeah,
dance.
Bahia, it's a Brazilian Africa. It's the food is very African, the dance, the culture, lots of drums, lots of rhythms. Your son, Gabriel, came here to study music, study drums, and because the music here it's powerful, the dance, all the arts are very powerful. And my family was very artistic always. My parents were singers, and so I'm used to listening to music. We had a choir as a family. We created a choir and we sang music from medieval times when I was little. And then I kept on going into arts. And this other picture that you see, it's me singing carnival. I was a professional carnival singer for many years with some people that today are very, very famous all over the world, like Daniela Mercury and Ivete Sangalo, some names that people probably know from Brazil. And we used to sing together. We kind of founded the trio, the carnival style that we have today, what we call Axé music. It's when I was like at that age, 18, 19, 20 years old.
About
And
20,
I used to,
about 20 years ago, right?
a little bit longer,
So
maybe
you
40
gave,
years.
yeah, right? Don't admit it. You gave me the opportunity to treat both Daniela and also Ivete. I had the
That's
chance
true.
on both, which was an incredible honor because they are just these amazing celebrities. But we had great conversations with
Very
them
famous.
and really beautiful people. And I was going to say you made a comment that Gabriel went down. Gabriel, we have a slide of that in a minute. But Gabriel came down and he went with Junio to a rehearsal. And I'm trying to remember, was it Gilberto Gil that he had the rehearsal with, or was it, I can't remember who
Yes,
it was. I think it was Gilberto Gil. And Gilberto
yes,
Gil let Gabriel play with the percussionist for like hours. And Gabriel never looked back. I mean, he's a professional percussionist today and a music producer. But it all started, on that trip where Junio took him in for a rehearsal while you and I were working. So very interesting.
yes. My brothers are musicians. I mean, we grew in this ambience, and my ex-husband was the father of my first daughter, which is Juninho that took Gabriel. So I'm surrounded by musicians, and this was part of my life.
I knew I had a picture of Junio there, Lana's father,
Yeah.
and let's talk a little bit about sort of your journey from professional singing and dancing to your trip to California to study, and Junio was studying music and you were studying dance, and sort of how you ended up back in Bahia with one of the very first or maybe the first. I know Anela always likes to claim the first, but I think you were the first to bring Pilates back into Brazil. So tell us a little bit about that journey. So professional dancing, singing to California.
Yeah, the singing was and modeling because of my color and my eyes, I was very rare in Bahia. So I used to model to make some extra money because a dancer is always very poor. And I decided I wanted to go professionally as a dancer. So I went into the university, graduated in dance, and music was where I made money too. Like in Carnival, once a year we would sing summer and then make some extra shows, and I could live my whole year surviving out of dance. And when I graduated from the university, at that time, my ex-husband, Juninho, which is a musician, decided to go abroad to do his master's in music at the CalArts, California Institute of the Arts. And I went too. And from there, I got a scholarship from Brazil because I wasn't a year already graduated. So the Brazilian government would not give me a scholarship. But when I went to school, I created a solo and they really liked my work and they reinforced and wrote all these letters saying that Brazil couldn't miss me. So I got the scholarship and I went to CalArts for 2.5 years. One semester the school gave me and 2 years I got from the government. And I met the Pilates work there. And I always have been a dancer with a very difficult body. People actually, before I went to the US, people told me I should change professions because I'm turned in, my joints are tight, I'm not flexible. You know, I don't have the style that at that time was a requisite. Today, the dance has changed. But when I was young, dance has a specific body you had to have.
They
But
wanted that balletic body, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I insisted because I really love to dance. I learned to dance with my dad, and he taught me, you should do what you love to do because that's the only way you can be successful. I was really worried about being poor as a dancer, and he said, you won't be poor. You won't be poor because you'll be happy, and that certainly is going to open your paths. So I went to the US, I took my master's, I tried Pilates, didn't like it very much at first. I think the approach that the teacher gave to me was more into idea. I was too young and I wanted to move, and Pilates was very specific about the body. I didn't think like I was moving in space. So I skipped as many classes as I could until my ballet teacher caught me in the hallways and said, you skipping Pilates. I'm like, I don't like this thing. Why do I need this? And she's like, with the body you have, oh, you were the person that needs it. With this difficult body, you should. And then she brought me into a room that has two reformers. And she talked the language of dance to me. So this is a grand plie in the footwork. This is a développé. This is going to help you jump. And then my stupid mind opened and I could see. And then I saw the change in 1 month of things that I could do that in my whole life of dance technique I couldn't. So I really went crazy, went training with Marie-Josée Bloom. At that time, nobody knew who she was, but now she's a famous star in the Pilates world. And we liked each other very much. Because I had a difficult body, I think I had an easy communication with people that have difficult time moving. So I could attract to her studio the parents of the ballerinas that she used to teach Pilates to. And I attracted a new clientele of people with problems, restrictions, and for some reason I could communicate well with them. But I had to go back to Brazil to give back to the country the investment they gave on me. It's an ethical commitment. So I came and I had to spend 2 years in Brazil before I could go back again. So I left all proposals of dance companies I could dance for and work for Marie-Josée Bloom and things like that. Came back into the dance company I worked for 36 years, the Ballet Teatro Castro Alves, and start teaching Pilates to them. And you know how dancers get injured, right, Brent? You very well know that with your experience in Miami Ballet. And a lot of dancers came to take class with me because they saw the transformation. I was the black duck of the company and came back one of the soloists. So they said, wow, what happened? I'm like, Pilates, come and try it. And they injure a lot. And when I looked around, I had like tons of injured people with herniated discs, fractures, surgeries, knee problems, ankle problems. And I was like, I don't know what a herniated disc is. And there's no physical therapist to help me. Nobody was interested in what this ballerina was doing, you know, because they don't think, I mean, they didn't think we were important at that time. So I started to do research and I found out about the Memorial Hospital in Elizabeth Larkham and the rehabilitation center they had for dancers. So I contacted her and invited her to come and train. At this point, I had already a lot of people teaching for me. My first students, my best students became teachers because when I got pregnant for my first daughter, I had almost a miscarriage. I lost a lot of blood and I had to rest. And the next day I was laying down and telling them how to change a red spring and how to teach people was like that. So at that time when I contacted Polestar, Elizabeth, I had so many teachers and I invited her to come and teach. We were around 10 people. And 15 days before she was to fly, she sent me a letter saying, I can go, I have personal problems, I'm sending my partner. This guy I've never heard of, a man called Brent Anderson. And I was so mad. I was like,
And disappointed.
oh, this invited you, and you send me somebody. And she's like, don't worry, you're gonna like him. He's a physical therapist. He's the guy you need for your requests. And Brent writes me a beautiful email saying, don't worry, I'll do my best, and I'm sure you know you won't regret. I'm really open to help you. And when he landed here, I immediately took him to a beach, a desert beach, because it was a weekend and my friends had all decided to go. And I'm like, if you don't want to go, we stay and I will be with you and I'll show you town. But if you like nature, let's go and camp on the beach. And this crazy man looked at me and said, sure. And I was like, oh, I liked him. So we
Yeah.
went and
But
slept to the stars with a
yeah, we
blanket
slept
on the tent.
open sky, and it was a
Open.
full moon. And we just ran down, and of course, what we both realized is that we both realized that each other were skinny dippers at heart, that we loved to just go into the water naked. And it was like I was sort of being reserved up on top of the sand dune, and everybody nighttime ran down. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in the right place. This is where I want to be. And it was an amazing couple days. Like we just, you know, coconut water and fresh fruits and papaya and things that I mean, it was an amazing experience. I was won over immediately. And I was just thinking, like, I hope I can keep them, you know, I hope I can entertain them. You brought up something with Marie-José Blum, and it's interesting because both Elizabeth and I were very good friends with Marie-José. And so we would go down. She would coordinate these events and these workshops with Romana and Carola and Ron Fletcher. And we would go down to LA with her and Joseph, her partner at that time. And we would learn together. All of us would be there together. And we went together to Eve Gentry. And so we got a chance to have a lot of the same kind of original training with some of the elders that we did together. So that was really fun. And Marie Jose is just an amazing human being. So she's now back in Holland, I believe, and she's doing well and not teaching nearly as much. Her smart spine still is known throughout the world, a very cool thing that she designed. And she always had that special, I would say more on the Eve Gentry side of the healing and the
Yeah.
really working with the client. She did the same thing with her gyrotonic training and the dancers. So Long Beach Dance. So great roots we have through her. So
She had X-rays in her eyes, I used to say, because she would look at the pelvis and see like micro movements. That I was like, I can't see it. She's like, can you see it? I'm like, no.
yeah,
She
who
was,
else we worked with was Jean-Claude West. And we all were
um,
fascinated. Jean-Claude had trained with Kathy Grant in New York and moved out to California and was a biomechanist in training, he lives there now. And they became really close. So she did a lot of study with Jean-Claude West, and he was the one that had that. You think Marie-José had X-ray vision, Jean-Claude West had like triple, that sort of CAT scan, three-dimensional view that, just these amazing people in the early part of our Pilates journey. So very cool. So basically, I show up there and I get off the airplane and Elise meets me. And I knew there was just a moment there, but it really was just a moment before we connected. And it was like, okay, we're good. We're gonna be fine this weekend, this week of teaching. And I was really excited to be in Brazil. So this was one of our first groups. A lot of these are some of, I don't know if it was the first one, but it certainly has a lot of the original teachers that had worked with you when I came
yeah,
down.
was the first one. Was the first one. This is
Yeah.
the very first one that trained with Polestar in Brazil. Was 9 intensive, crazy days. We would be at the end of every day, like laying down one on top of the other. We couldn't even think and talk anymore because it was like an overload of information. At that time, there were no official manuals, no pictures, just a bunch of written things that you put together, names of exercises. And we were there experimenting, exploiting. And I remember that we were both very, we we connected in a very powerful way. And we felt like we could complement a lot each other's work, and a lot of, we call in Portuguese affinity, I don't know how to say that, a lot of identification, things that we think the same way.
Attraction, affinity. Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting because remember, I mean, you had to translate for me for everything. And, you know, it's like pretty soon I just was sort of, and you already knew what to say, you know, it's like it came out, it came out already. And then there were times where if you got stuck, I already learned it in Portuguese, so I could say it in Portuguese, the word or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
We
that's how I learned
complete each other's
Portuguese was from you translating, is how I learned Portuguese.
Yeah. So then we trained a few groups. I mean, you came this first time, it was in 1998, I think,
It was
was the
90.
first.
I just moved to Miami like the year before, so it was 1998.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
like I was down there 2, 3 times a year. I mean, for many years. You know, as you got your team more and more established, and we got the curriculum built up in Portuguese, and you know, that was an amazing time. Melissa, can you give me the next slide? Because I think this is our kids, some of our kids. Yeah.
so this here, Brent, before you change, those are very important people, and some of them are still our educators today.
So who's in this picture? I see Tina and Georgia and Elena.
Yes. So Georgia is the on the right that we see. She's the one in the right with the short hair and long white T-shirt.
Yeah.
And Terezinha and Elena are sitting down in front. The one that's embracing the other. They still here and working together. And on the left is Selma.
Mhm.
And Mabel is still working with Pilates and helping us. And Tina was an educator for many, many years, and Gal, that's in purple here. And today she's a master trainer of gyrotonic, and she runs the gyrotonic training. And Daniela and Laura, they are all involved and all live in Salvador, all teaching and doing very important things.
I just recognize Jacqueline too. So I see Jacqueline there.
Jacqueline was my first partner. We had a studio together where the courses were running, actually is what in our studio.
Yeah.
So this is history. These are pioneers of Pilates in Brazil.
Yeah. Great, great picture. I still had hair.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next slide. So over the years, we made trips over and over again to Brazil, and I brought Gabriel with me. I always had a tradition that when the kids turned 9 years old, they could go with me anywhere they wanted to go, and Gabriel chose Brazil. So he came down, and we had a great trip that time. And that's Gabriel with Lana. So Lana is Alicia's oldest daughter. Funny enough, they're both in the music industry.
She's now 24. Also a musician. I mean, she plays piano and she works with editing and composing and doing video and cinema, and so they both connected a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Alina.
The two girls.
Yeah.
Alina and Sophia. My baby is in Alina's arms. And they are so similar, Brent. It's so funny that we have this picture because Alina's athletic, has always been very active. Will be jumping, hanging on the trapeze table, doing push-ups, and we were like amazed with her strength and pole vaulting and all that. And Sophia is the same, always very physically powerful, tall, long legs, runs like crazy, swims like crazy, plays basketball, dances all the time, moving around.
So now Alina has her own baby. So she got her 18-month-old.
Yes, oh, you were a lucky man.
I know. I love being a grandpa. Let's go to the next slide. So this is sort of like established, and Now, by this time, you're married with Claudio. Claudio takes on the task of providing equipment in Brazil and has an arrangement with Balanced Body, which you see Ken Indelman there. And the reality is we're just traveling all over the world. Like there's just different events, different conferences. Brazil and Physio Pilates, Polestar Brazil, hosting conferences after conferences. We're all over the place. And these are just a few of the pictures. There's hundreds of pictures of us then traveling in different countries. So I mean, I could start off very quickly and just say that we've been in Brazil, New Zealand, Australia, in Asia, in Europe. This is in Spain, the picture we're looking at here on the right. On the left is in Brazil. This was not too long
Italy.
ago. Was that?
Isn't Italy?
On the right or the left?
The right.
The right,
left
that
is
was Spain. That was the Play conference in Spain. And we took a day trip up to the ruins just north of Madrid on our day off.
Oh,
On the left
great.
is your house, right? That's in your...
It's my house, yes, in Bahia. It's my apartment. And that's Vera, our greatest cook ever.
She's amazing.
You know, she went into university and did she graduated in cooking.
Yeah, she was an amazing chef. And then we have Victor there, and we have Blas there from Spain, and we have Balanced Body folks there. So Nora and Al and Ken down in front. So again, just becomes a very small world. You know, England, we've been in England together, and just a lot of...
Shelly's back there. Shelly's behind me, close to me.
Yep, yep. Let's go to the next slide. So this is...
It was great. Those years, Brent, when you decided to do the Polestar International Conference every year in a different country, remember that? We did in a few and then we stopped. Then we went to down to San Diego. But for a few years, we were all over. Every year was a different place.
We were the first to have international conferences. We did it, like you said, from like 2001 or 2002. And then we started taking turns. So we had in Germany, we had in Brazil. That was an amazing conference we had in Brazil, that first one. We had a lot of people around the world. It was really spectacular. This picture here on the left is one of my favorite pictures that I took of Elise in Spain on that one day. And I just caught sort of that, I don't know, I just always like your natural happiness and smile, especially when you're outside. I know you'd rather be outside than inside any time of the year. But here the wind was blowing, and then this picture on the right was their last conference in Brazil, and so just us together. So what I want to do now...
One of the conferences that we did not organize, but we went to many different conferences. This was a Congresso Brasileiro, one of the many different other companies we did together.
That's right. And the one on the left, we were at Juan Nieto's conference and Blas's conference on play in Madrid. So that was a real fun one to teach together. And it's so much nicer to attend other people's conferences, right, than organizing our own.
Yeah, much better.
A lot more
we can
relaxed.
enjoy the conference.
That's right.
When we organize it, maybe.
So I wanna talk about some things on a sort of a serious note. And I know you're a mover and a shaker, and so am I. And sort of, looking at the future, and Brazil and the United States are struggling tremendously with the COVID. It's affecting a lot of our studios. We've shut down a studio. You've shut down a studio. We're trying to figure out where we go from here with our education product, and even the future of Pilates as a profession. If we can't touch, if we can't be in groups, if we can't do group classes, if we can't do privates or circuito, like, what do we do? What's the future of this? And we both have obviously had some discussions, and we've talked about it. We've thought a lot about it. We pray about it. We meditate about it. We cry about it sometimes, and trying to figure out, how do we move this forward? How do we how do we keep our profession thriving? And in particularly, I'm curious as to your thoughts in Brazil. And then also, I want to discuss a little bit of, um, where do you see yourself as, a leader, the leader that you are in, in this profession, in more the energetic and the spiritual side of what we do, what we represent in both of our companies and our company together. It's very human based, it's very humanitarian based, it's very ecological based. We always are discussing how do we minimize our impact on the planet, how do we, exude kindness and eliminate prejudice, eliminate inequality. So I want to go there a little bit and just, love to hear your thoughts. I want the world to hear your thoughts. I think you have some very strong opinions and feelings towards this, and I think the world needs to hear it. So I'm going to let you just sort of share some of your thoughts. And we do have a comment from Sylvia. She said, many changes are happening in the world and will still happen, but I believe that these lessons will strengthen Pilates. I love Pilates and I will be with you. You will come to Ribeirão Preto, and I already asked the universe. So Sylvia, we have heard, we're good. So Elise, talk to us a little bit about your thoughts and your feelings, your passions.
I have a theory that I think what makes us sick in all areas of our bodies, because we are made of so many bodies, right? We have the spiritual body, we have the musculoskeleton, the energetic one, emotional body. So we are composed of so many bodies, like we say in Polestar. And I have a feeling that what makes us sick in all of those areas of our being is being distant from nature, actually. When we get too disconnected from the animal that lives in us, from the basic chakra, let's say, from putting our feet on earth, being really living in earth, in physical contact, we kind of get unbalanced in terms of our chemicals, of the food we eat doesn't have the adequate nutrients because it doesn't come from that soil you're living with, that sun and that kind of air. So it comes from somewhere else. It has different nutrients, that plant, than what you need for living in this place. It's kind of like nature has its own complete cycle. And the food you eat that's grown in the place you are has the right things for you. This is my theory. It might be stupid, but that's the way I feel. And energetically, I feel the same. So I feel like the more we are disconnected to nature, the more confused we get in our systems. And that confusion messes up things, and then we get unbalanced. And then the whole thing happens. So what I feel is happening to us in the world today is we forgot we are animals. We forgot our animal side. We need to be grounded. We need to put our feet on earth. We need to eat what we collect from that soil over there. We need to really breathe a different air, to hug a tree and be there. And that balances us. Every time we do that, every time we are in nature, we connect to nature, we live there for a while, the whole system kind of organizes itself and balances out.
It's interesting you say that, excuse me for a second, but this is completely in harmony with what Joseph Pilates taught, isn't it? And the philosophy, the essentials was plenty of fresh air and sunshine. And we took it a little bit further with the idea of earthing and how important it is to get our bare feet into the dirt and to feel the sand and to be in the ocean and to, like you said, hug the tree. And you bring this up at a very crucial time because the earth has had a little bit of a breather because of COVID. So less planes, less cars, less industry working, and people are noticing things like the water's cleaner and the air is cleaner and the sky is bluer and the stars are brighter. And you know, it's very interesting of the observations that people are making that COVID has actually provided us, because we had to take a break. We had to stop. Now, for me personally, you know, I'm up here on the farm, and every day I'm in the garden and holding the dirt in my hands and grabbing chickens and eating eggs from, you know, that they're eating the bugs and the things, and that's what's making my eggs, and they're not running around in the sunshine. And so I know that my eggs are really healthy orange eggs inside. And you know, it's that process that you bring up that, I mean, I've noticed it. I've noticed it in my own spirit and my own energy of not being the burden that's burning carbon by flying every week, or by, you know, having to drive everywhere, and just to be grounded. Now it's been almost 3 months, and man, I can feel the difference in my life that you bring up. I totally believe it. And I think it's, you know, we'll see, the research will follow, but you know, first we have to experience it, and you know, go back and ask ourselves, why is there so much depression? Why is there so much disease? Why is there, you know, so many of these things? And you know, I think even just going back with Joseph Pilates' simple philosophy of, you know, get good sleep, exercise, good food, and get fresh air and sunshine, and balance out our work life. Like, our work life was too crazy. It was too hard. It was not healthy for us. We need to recreate. We need to take time off. We need to go to Capone. That's what I need to do.
Yeah.
You come up to the farm in North Carolina. Spend a week.
Oh, I'm sure I'm gonna love that place. By the pictures I've seen and the films you make, it's really beautiful. It's a lot of really the presence of nature is very powerful. When we stop a little bit to connect to that, we can feel it. And we've been so crazy going on and building the distance of our bodies to the nature, protecting ourselves because of the bugs, because of the darkness of the trees. We are afraid of nature every time more. So every time we get more distant, more protected, more blocked from it, and more distant from our essence. I feel that imbalances us a lot. And this is the first thing we need to do. It's find some time to connect to your animal, to really feel that, and let it come. And it's interesting what you said, because we had to give nature a chance to show off again, to show up and show up. And it's amazing what happened in 3 months, right? It makes my heart really be happy and calm, because it's not like the world is ending, because in 3 months we could recover so much that it really looks like it's a possible thing now. What before, to me, my hopes were gone. I confess that in some moments I said, it's too late. It's too late for humanity to start being aware of this and start making changes. With the speed that things go, it's too late. This earth, it's not going to survive. We are not going to survive in Earth. Actually, Earth will. It will just kick us out and put another species on.
And I was just gonna say, it's a shame that it took a global pandemic to even bring us to a point, and the, you know, the millions of lives have been affected, but a global pandemic to get us to a point that we actually could appreciate what you just said, that, you know, that the earth can heal, the earth will heal, if
Fast,
we give it a
fast.
break very quickly. Yeah, I've heard
If we do
I've heard ecologists say things like, you know, if we took the human race off within 7 years, that the earth would be, you wouldn't see any signs of humans. It's a little,
Isn't it amazing?
it's humbling for us to quit thinking that we need to dominate this planet, you know, versus we need to coexist and to, you know, I think that's
Exactly.
the point.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
really hope this makes a change in people that didn't think about it now think, because maybe a virus scares us a lot. So maybe out of fear or out of really realizing, appreciating being able to be outside, because being locked inside it's difficult for everybody. And so maybe all of those things can really, I mean, it opened a new hope, a new tunnel of hope and light inside me that I kind of had lost for humanity a little before, or almost lost. I never lose it, because I always think some miracle is going to happen. And because of the theory of the hundreds monk, right? Monkey,
Yeah.
anything is possible, right? If we get awareness going on. But we were getting more distance of awareness, actually. But so that's one thing. The second, I believe that our connection to earth and to our animal side is through our body. Our body is what materializes our life in earth, on earth. And so I think if what we do, it's really important for the future, for the health of the planet, because we not only move for the health of the joints and etc., energy and all that, but we also bring people back to their animal energy, which is their body. When we move our body, we connect to our essence.
There's, there's
So
there's a comment here that ties into that. It's from Adriana, and she says, "Do you think we should start teaching more Pilates outside, and that this might help our clients reconnect with nature and to their animal self?" So, um,
I always think, I think we can practice Pilates anywhere, on top of a rock, on sand. There's always going to be, of course, some challenges. The more irregular the surface is, the more challenge it gives you. But it's great because it gives you the opportunity to create. So I've done Pilates amongst the trees, and every time I go there, it's like a new light that pops up, a new opportunity of a new way to move, a new exercise, a new way to understand movement. And nature is amazing because it's always challenging you. It's always making you be creative, to be able to balance on one leg, for example, because the soil is inclined, or it's unstable, or it has rocks, or you have to find new strategies. And that's amazing. I think the best, I want to do it here in this place that I have, that has plateaus, like small mountains. It has nice heights and rocks and rivers. And just doing a walk on nature one day, you become much more intelligent with your body. Your proprioceptive system goes poof, up. It
yeah,
has to, you know,
I
and
think
the
you
more,
I think you create an awesome class, and it sort of ties in some of Juan and Blas's work with play and your work with nature, is to do something that is, like, okay, it's not, there's not a sequence. Nature dictates the sequence. So we're in a creek. What movement can we do in a creek? Okay, we're on a tree. What movement can we do on a tree? Can we do, back arch, and can we do swan on a tree if we're hanging up climbing a tree? Can we do the crab crawl through the creek? Can we, do, quadruped and up on top of the plateau? It's like, it'd be really interesting in the woods. What would you do, in a clearing, in the grass, in the dirt? How do you get your feet in sand, into the sand and the beach? And not necessarily think that you're teaching a Pilates class sequenced in that environment. And, I think is where we make the mistake. We think, okay, it's going to be really hard to put my mats down on this uneven rocky surface and do my mat class here. And it's just like we've taught in Polestar forever. It's like, look, you got a class of 5 women that are in their 3rd trimester of pregnancy. You're not going to lay down the ground. So how do you do your 100? You do it standing up, bent over, kneeling. I mean, there's so many millions of ways to create movement of the human body that we can really, I think that would be a really fun project, is almost like creating videos of different ideas of Pilates exercises in those different nature environments, even different weather. I think like
it's beautiful. There's a hike I love to do here, that everybody that comes here, I go there. You go up a trail to this beautiful waterfall. It's amazing, it's gorgeous. And then when we come down through inside the river, jumping rocks. And it's so much fun because you have to be a cat. You have to use your arms. You have to really organize your shoulders. You have to really adapt your body to the difference, because some rocks are loose, some are small. Some you have to plan because you have to already know your third step. In case that one is wobbling, you have already a place to jump for the next. So it's a lot of new things, strategies. It keeps you on, it keeps your whole body alert. You work the whole body. You work arms, legs, back, spine, rotation, flexion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
really
just
amazing.
I just listened to another YouTube video with Ido Portal. I know you've heard the name Ido Portal, and from Israel, and his whole thing, and things like animal flow that have come from Ido Portal, but the idea of just spontaneous movement of the body and just playing, and like, what is it like to walk on that bar? What is it like to climb up there, or to hang with one arm, or to hang with one arm and articulate the body while you're hanging? Could you do, something that looks like a roll up, but hanging with your arm instead of on the ground? And how do we explore that? And again, like you mentioned, the body learns so much. We do have a couple comments that came up, Alicia. One is from Alana, and she says, you guys are really connected. Love this webinar. So thank you, Alana. And
This lady is
Sylvia,
full of love. She's love incorporated in a person, Alana.
and we do have that connection. Sylvia said, I moved my Pilates studio to the farm to have the connection with nature and with the interior of each one. And she put it in Portuguese as well. Ensinar na natureza é uma conexão com o universo. As aulas online com Alice me mostraram que o simples é tudo. So the simple is everything. So a workshop. And then Yael from France said, you two together are bringing Pilates to a beautiful, energetic consciousness level. That approach is the root of Polestar. I think this is exactly what people are craving for in difficult times. And it really was our intention. When Alicia and I spoke before about this, was like, how do we create a new vision? How do we create new hope? How do we don't want to sit around and talk about how bad things are, or how are we ever going to get back to the past, right? Alicia, we talked about this. How do we want to know where we go from here? Like, let's be creative. Let's let this grounding with earth and with this time and the consciousness that Alicia talked about, the awareness that brings us to a new heightened level of spirituality, of consciousness and physicality. I mean, it is physicality. We always say, when you increase awareness of your body, you increase the awareness of your mind, and you increase the awareness of how our actions impact others. And I think that's,
Yeah.
The other issue we haven't really touched on, and we've certainly been dealing with in the United States, and I'm sure it happens in Brazil. Different way in Brazil. I felt it in Brazil, but very different, is the inequality and the racism that we experience so heavily in the United States. And again, it's this idea of consciousness, isn't it? It's like, if you really want to be equal, if you really want to treat everybody the same, if you really want to respect diversity, and you want to be transparent, we must be aware. And I think that's the piece that's missing, is that you don't get aware if your body's not aware. And so our tool is to get people to have awareness in their bodies, to appreciate that there's senses around us, and one of them being what we hear and see. And when we see or hear or think racist actions, that we are able to act in a more positive way to provide equality, to not be part of it. But it's not just enough to not be part of it. We have to stand against it. We have to be voices that recognize the error that exists in the constructs that have been around for centuries. And again, it comes back to what Alicia's talking about, is awareness and consciousness. Deepak Chopra said, if 23% of the community of the world, becomes conscious and aware, that there is a critical mass that could bring peace to our world. So it doesn't mean it has to be everybody. There's going to be
It's
haters.
not a lot.
No,
It's not a lot.
and it's a mathematical formula, so I don't know if it's real or not, but math is usually pretty good. But isn't it interesting that our work, it doesn't have to be on a Pilates machine. It doesn't have to be in a studio. It doesn't even have to be in person. I mean, that's what we've learned with COVID, right? Lisa, you've been
Yeah.
teaching beautiful workshops virtually, and people have seen it all around the world that have been joining your workshops and classes. So I think we just have to, shift the way we look at things and say, what is the big picture? The big picture is we need to be more conscious. We need to be more aware of Mother Earth. We need to be more aware of equality of all of our brothers and sisters on the planet and all of humanity, creatures, animals alike. We need to be conscious of how we vote. We need to be conscious of, how we treat our land and the things that we have stewardship over and how we use resources. And this consciousness is the answer. I really think it's the answer. Now, we can get it
Yeah.
from our praying and our meditating, but a big part of it is the disconnect of not having awareness of our body and expecting something different as an outcome. It's like it can't happen. The body and the mind and the spirit.
It can happen.
That's fundamental.
You don't have the right tools. You need those tools.
Alicia, we're getting like the last 5 minutes of our time. What are
Wow,
some
it
other
goes.
thoughts? What are some other thoughts that when I had asked you earlier, like your fingerprint? What is something that you would like your legacy to be remembered for? The fingerprint of Alicia. I have a number of things that I think that you've already done that are your fingerprint, but I'd love to hear from you, like what your sort of vision and your passion to bring to the world.
Um, Once I heard something from a model, actually, a very famous model from Brazil, that impacted me very deep. And I think it has a lot to do with me. She said, they asked her why she was so successful. What does she think she was successful? And she said, I think that it has to do with me being there 100% in everything I do. And I kind of feel that way. I'm too intense sometimes. Sometimes that's not good also, but that's the way I can only be. It's being 100% on the things I do. When I'm teaching, I'm teaching. And I ruin it. I mean, I hurt people sometimes because I don't stop for a drink. I don't stop to eat. I don't make the pauses on the right time. Georgia gets crazy with me because I go past time. I didn't do the thing as I was supposed to because I just get into it. And when I'm there, I'm there. I'm 100% there. When I was little, I would go play outside. I would forget my mother. I would forget I had to come back home. I would forget I had to eat. And sometimes I would be locked up 3 days because I did that, because I disappeared for a whole day and didn't tell her anything. I was just so involved with what I was doing. Every time I toured with the dance company, I wouldn't call home and my husband would go crazy. And I would get messages from my friends saying, are you alive? Your husband is so crazy because you didn't call, because I'll be there. When I'm there, I'm there. And I think this is what I am. I'm very intense. I'm just always 100% present on what I'm doing.
And the word you just used is present. And there's a lot of research that shows that the attitude or desire to be present in the moment, not living in the past, not thinking in the future, is directly tied to the idea of satisfaction and contentment. That people who live in the present are in a part of their brain and stimulating serotonin type 2A receptors that are directly related to many other health factors in our body. So people who are present tend to be much happier than people who are searching for pleasure. And they differentiate these two things. One is satisfaction and one is pleasure seeking. Pleasure seeking for happiness is a dopamine response in the brain. And so you can burn out your dopamine response. That's why addictive behavior is tied to pleasure seeking and dopamine, where being present is directly related to satisfaction and contentment and serotonin type 2A. So it's like you're being honest, you're doing your best, you're present. And when you know that about yourself, it doesn't really matter if there's failures, successes, it's irrelevant. It's just, part of life, and embracing the failure, embracing the success, but it's really about that moment, isn't it? I mean, I always say the two areas that I find that I am completely present is when I'm teaching and when I'm treating patients. I find those are two areas for me and love. I think are areas that is just like, I completely lose track of time. I have to have assistance to make sure that I stop on time, give breaks like you, the same thing, because I mean, I think, if you and I were just to keep going, we would, we could talk forever and we could enjoy the intensity of our passions for our work.
Brent, you really incorporate an entity. You incorporate the spirit of the universe or something when you're treating, because it's really magic when you do that. I've seen you many times treating people, and there's some magic that happens that's not only in your brain and your hands, it's something that goes down through you because you really are there. I I think it's the place I most admire of everything you do. It's when you are treating people, because it's unbelievable what happens there. I've seen it. It's magic.
You just reminded me of a very special experience I had with your husband Claudio in Rio de Janeiro. And I think Georgia was there, and I think maybe Marla was there. I don't know if there were two or three other people there. And we were having all kinds of interesting experiences, needless to say. This hotel is famous for having ghosts, Hotel Gloria. So it's a very interesting hotel. It's a whole nother story that we could talk about. But Claudio had just had a motorcycle accident. He had really injured his ankle. He was lacking movement. He was having a lot of pain, and it was there after teaching a course, and we were all tired, and I could tell that Claudio was really hurting. And we put him up on the trapeze table, and it was probably one of the times that I felt the purest connection with the universe in treating was with Claudio. And it was not about anything scientific. It was not about anything mechanical or manipulating or manual therapy. I felt his desire and his faith in the idea of getting better. And I literally felt his tissues changing under my hands, and he felt it. And Georgia was there and she saw it, and we were all like bawling, like just crying. And not because of pain, it just was like there was an energy that was so present. So I mean, I certainly don't want to take credit for that. It was as amazing of an experience for me to be a channel of that. It was something that I could not say, this is a physical therapy practice or this is applied to it. It was like this was completely out of that realm. It was divine. It was energetic. It was built on, multiple individuals wanting the same thing. And, many times I've longed to have that energy back and I always feel pretty inspired when I treat. I love treating. But that was a really special experience that I had.
I've seen many of those, Brent. I remember them. I've seen people burst into tears, people going like that and having memories of things that happened to them when they were 4 years old. I mean, you really have that power. That is you. You open yourself and I don't know, you cultivate that. You really put 100% your energy in that moment to really heal. And it's amazing the power you have. It's really powerful. It's you. It's what you are able to build.
And it's in your teaching as well. I think it's being present and allowing, not prejudging the outcome, not prejudging that moment. It's like what needs to happen in this moment is going to happen in this moment. I'm going to be part of it. But if I have doubt and I look at it and I go, oh, this is not a good group. There's too many people that are too critical, or this person, this is way too serious of an injury, or this person doesn't speak the same language as me, and we have all these doubts. And it's like, look, I've been in the moment where all of a sudden I'm speaking that language more fluently than I could ever possibly imagine, because I needed to communicate in that moment. It wasn't that I spoke any language very well. I have a hard enough time speaking English well, let alone to speak other languages well. But I know when I'm in that moment
Yeah.
that it's like the universe wants something to happen. And by golly, I'm going to be part of that happening. I think it's, it's faith. It's just believing that these things happen and that, we're part of a much bigger power and body of knowledge, the Akashic field. We're part of something so much bigger than any of us. Like,
Yeah.
when I look at these politicians and I look at, people that are leaders in some of the healthcare industries, and I'm thinking like, how dare you think that you know everything there is to know about something? Like, why can't you just be quiet and be present and observe? Look what's going on around us and be part of that with the power and authority that different people have is to listen and be sensitives, not to be authoritatives. And so maybe that's the
That
last
is
thing.
something I have to learn a lot, and I'm working on, because being intense and being giving 100%, sometimes I become a tractor that goes because I have to get it done, and so it's also my sin. What gives me power, but at the same time is what makes me do harm people sometimes, because
Well,
I'm there. I want
I
them to
never
be
think
as
it.
intense as I am. I want them to believe in the same thing I do, and I go too strong sometimes. So
Well, I
yeah,
think we all need to learn that. I've certainly learned that lesson. I've certainly been too authoritative in business and those kind of things. And I'm learning that it's like, and we can sort of finish with this note is like, look, there is nothing in this world that we can control. you know,
nothing.
you can think, it's like even thinking that, Polestar to some extent was invincible because we're in 67 countries. So if Brazil's economy goes down and China and Hong Kong are having a fight, we still got 60 other countries that are viable. And to realize within 2 weeks, 67 countries in Polestar shut down at the same time. And it just makes me think. And I just thought, when that happened, it was like, this is so far out of my control. Maybe this is a good message for everybody to understand. If you're closing your studio, if you've lost a home, if you're going through some really difficult times, if your loved ones have died, there is nothing that we control except for our will. I think that's the only thing we have control over is our will. And when we can accept the moment and we can ask what we learned from the moment, and we can maybe even look at a more eternal perspective of life. I always feel bad for people who think that, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, after death, everything's done. Whether you believe it's in God or the universe or resurrection or reincarnation, there is an innate hope that there is a continuation of our being energetically after death. And we feel it all the time. We see it. Like I see my dad and myself all the time. I walk and all of a sudden I look in the mirror and it's like, oh, there's my dad. It's like I feel those things. And I think that, having that hope and realizing that, look, the universe is going to deal some things. It's just part of life. And the better we can accept that we don't have control over it.
The only
And
thing we can do, I think, is exercise. Exercise every day. Exercise your thinking, exercise your body, exercise the actions you want to do, exercise changing the things you want to change. The only thing we can do every day is work out.
and that's our mind, and that's our mind making the decision. We just took that course, mind setting, and it was like, look, just choose to be able to do it. Like just get rid of those blocks and those negative thoughts and accept the failures. The failures are okay. The failures aren't the end of anything. It's just a process. It's how we learn. It's part of the game.
It's movement.
Uh,
It's movement.
it's movement. All of it's movement. Let me finish up with a quote here from Adriana again. And she says, amazing ideas. I'm currently doing Pilates in the forest myself, but you just encouraged me to do it with my clients. I love nature, love
Yeah.
listening to both about the beautiful connection with nature. Your energy and love and awareness of our universe increases the consciousness we need and gives us the encouragement to keep doing our best to bring Joseph Pilates' legacy to everyone. Thank you. Namaste. And with that,
Namaste.
I just want to thank you, Alici, for sharing your vision, with sharing your beautiful heart. your love for movement, your passion for nature. I think these are so important for us in the essentials as Pilates teachers to make sure that we don't leave those out. Don't think that Pilates is just an exercise regimen. It's so much more than that. It's a lifestyle, and that lifestyle is complete. And if we do those 9 things, I can tell you that you're going to decrease your stress, you're going to increase your blood flow with renewed vigor and zest, and you're going to be able to do your daily activities with natural ease. And that's really what we want to teach and share with the world. Please be safe. Wear a mask. Don't let anybody convince you not to wear a mask when you're out in public. I know there's a lot of people that are thinking it's a trick, but the mask is important. Thank you, Elise. Wear your mask when you're out in public, and we'll see you next week. By the way, next week we have another dear friend of ours. He's sort of our youngest rock star, right? Elise Akin from Turkey.
Oh, girls, be prepared. Be prepared.
I used to have a little bit of that, control, but now I realize that I got like the Juan Nietos and Akins and Murat, who are just all stars, rock stars in the movement world. So I'm going to have Akin and also Murat, one of our senior educators from Turkey. They're going to be sharing with us what's going on in Turkey pertaining to Pilates, their lives, what's their personal experiences. So join us next week, and the week after that, we'll have another educational workshop. So every Thursday, 3 o'clock at this channel, same place, always free. Be healthy, be mindful, be conscious. Love you guys. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you, Brent, for everything.
You're welcome. Talk to you
Always.